Before we start, I would like to let you know that I am not against Russia, I am not criticizing Russia, and I am not hating anyone here. Everything I will say in this podcast will be about what Pyotr Chaadayev said about Russia. These are not my views. I'm not going against Russia. Now that I have that out of the way, let us get into today's podcast. Pyotr Chaadayev was a Russian philosopher who wrote 8 philosophical letters about Russia in French between 1826 and 1831. And these letters took their rounds between intellectuals in Russia in manuscript forms for many years. These letters criticize Russian culture for being far behind the leaders of Western civilization. He criticizes Russia's past and argues that Orthodoxy had failed to provide spiritual comfort and a spiritual base for the Russian mind. He praised the achievements of Europe, such as their rational and logical thought, their progress in leadership, science, art, freedom, and so on. But after the publication of his letter, they were all banned because the Russian government saw his ideas as dangerous, and because there was absolutely nothing to charge him with. The Russian government declared him legally insane and put him under constant medical observation. The main point in his philosophical letters was that Russia was far behind Western countries and that they contributed nothing to the progress of the world, his claims. He claimed that Russia must start anew, that Russia had to start from the beginning. In fact, in 1836, the first edition and the only letter published in his entire life was published in the Russian magazine Telescope, and the editor was exiled to the far north of Russia. I'll read a bit of his letter and listen carefully to what he says in his first philosophical letter that is translated by Nathaniel Knight. It is one of the most deplorable traits of our strange civilization that we are still discovering truths that are commonplace even among peoples much less advanced than we. This is because we have never moved in concert with the other people. We are not a part of any of the great families of the human race. We are neither of the West nor of the East, and we have not the traditions of either. We stand, as it were, outside of time. The universal education of mankind has not touched us. Look around you. Everyone seems to have one foot in the air. One would think that we are all in transit. No one has a fixed sphere of existence. There are no proper habits, no rules that govern anything. We do not even have homes. There is nothing to tie us down, nothing that arouses our sympathies and affections, nothing enduring, nothing lasting. Everything passes, flows away, leaving no trace either outside or within us. In our homes, we are like guests. To our family, we are like strangers. And in our cities, we seem like nomads, more so than those who wander our steppes. For they are more attached to their deserts than we are to our towns. Our memories reach back no further than yesterday. We are, as it were, strangers to ourselves. We move through time in such a singular manner that as we advance, the past is lost to us forever. That is but a natural consequence of a culture that consists entirely of imports and imitation. And among us, there is no internal development, no natural progress. New ideas sweep out the old because they are not derived from the old, but tumble down upon us from who knows where. We absorb all our ideas ready-made, and therefore the indelible trace left in the mind by a progressive movement of ideas, which gives it strength, does not shape our intellect. We grow, but we don't mature. We move, but along a crooked path. That is, one that does not lead to the desired goal. We are like children who have not been taught to think for themselves. When they become adults, They have nothing of their own. All their knowledge is on the surface of their being. Their soul is not within them. That is precisely our situation. Peoples, like individuals, are moral beings. Their education takes centuries, as it takes years for that of persons. In a way, one could say that we are an exception among people. We are one of those nations which do not seem to be an integral part of the human race, but exists only in order to teach some great lesson to the world. End quote. You can clearly see from what he says that he truly believes that Russia is a backward country, that its society is lagging behind, that they exist as a great lesson to the world, and that Russia may grow but that they will not mature. And he says much more than this though. He believes that Europe lacked that connection to the historical context of their religion. Chaadayev saw European Christian nations as superior, as an ideal role model for Russia. Chaadayev also goes on to explain how Russia never contributed to the progress of the world. He claims that Russia gave an insufficient contribution to the world of intellectual thought. He said that religion should be the main cultural factor and admired the culture of Western Europe, where Catholicism was present. In his letter, Chaadayev goes on to explain the backwardness of the Russian people. He claims that this backwardness is because Russia never went along with other nations and that the Russians do not belong to any family of humanity. Chaadayev argues that Russia is not the West, not the East, and that there are no legends from any direction in Russia. Chaadayev claims that the history of Russia has developed in a very ugly way. First there was barbarism, then superstition, and then a whole era consisting of humiliating and cruel rulers. The features of the past, he claims, have not disappeared from Russia until now. A dark and hopeless existence, says Chaadayev. Russia lacks duty, law, order, and truth. There is no concepts of such things, says Chaadayev. To Chaadayev, the Russian people are like hermits because they do not bring their ideas out into the mass of ideas that humanity has created. But all that Russia ever did was improve knowledge and distort the seeds of these ideas, distort the origin of these ideas. Chaadayev requested that Russia should join the rich cultural world of Western Europe and that all the nations should unite under the support of the Catholic Church. And that sums up the criticism of Russia by Pyotr Chaadayev. Before we part ways, I just want to let you know once again that I am not against Russia and that I was simply explaining what Pyotr Chaadayev had to say. Thank you very much. If you enjoyed this podcast, be sure to subscribe. Do leave a comment down below and please help me out, okay? You need to tell me what video I should make next. Not video, but podcast, okay? And I love you guys. Hope you have a great day, night, afternoon, wherever you are. Take care of yourselves. See you soon.